would you feel if at 17 years old, someone told you that you had to take a test that would dictate the rest of your life? Now, how would you feel if you also did not have the same preparation as your peers? You could be more prepared, but you could also be less prepared. Sounds scary, right? But let's make things scarier. Imagine you come from an economically challenged background. You had very little preparation, and this is the only chance you have to take this test. Believe it or not, this is a reality for many students across America. The expensive nature of the test and preparation, as well as its importance on college applications, contributes greatly to the cycle of wealth inequality in America. So, how exactly is College Board contributing to wealth inequality? Well, in order to get a high-paying job, you will most likely need a college degree. It is easier for someone to get a high-paying job with a degree from a top-accredited university than it is from one with a higher acceptance rate. Now, how do you get into these top-paying colleges? Well, most colleges look at two things when they're accepting people: AP scores and lots of AP classes on a transcript, and SAT scores. But since the SAT is standardized, every student has an equal opportunity to score high enough to be accepted into these universities, right? Wrong. Students who come from lower income families will likely earn a lower score than students who come from affluent backgrounds. Let's take a look at some numbers, shall we? As my brother is a rising high school senior, I took this opportunity to register him for an SAT. I wanted to see exactly how much one of these tests would cost. This year, the base test costs $52. If you choose to do the optional essay portion, which most colleges now require, it's an additional $16. And now most counselors, colleges, and teachers recommend taking the SAT multiple times to improve your score, especially since colleges started implementing superscoring, where your highest scores for each section are combined from previous tests. It has become commonplace to take the SAT multiple times. But how will you know which sections you need to study for your next test? College Board will provide an in-depth score analysis for an additional $13.50. I took the SAT 3 times. Each test, for me, cost $81.50 with the additional score report and the essay portion. In total, I spent $244 on the SAT. That doesn't include the $80 that I spent on study materials for this test. So, as you can see, these tests are not exactly cheap. Some students may choose to take it more than 3 times. Since the SAT allows anywhere from a high school sophomore all the way until graduating senior to take it, it can be taken for a total of 21 times. Some students can even afford to get private tutoring. Kaplan, a well-accredited SAT study program, promises a highly competitive score, with its top program costing only $4,600. Students from higher income backgrounds now have a huge advantage when it comes to getting into these top colleges, perpetuating the cycle of wealth inequality. Okay, so we know the SAT is quite expensive, but what about AP testing? In 2019, the cost of one AP test was $87. I took 7 AP tests over my high school career, and I know some students who took even more. Personally, I spent $609 on AP testing. But students who can't afford to spend this much money on tests have a harder time getting into top accredited universities. Those with more money to spend have a much higher advantage, providing them first access to the highest paying jobs, which will provide their children the opportunity to spend more on standardized testing. The cycle continues. College Board has had such a monopoly on the test-taking world. They won't change a thing about their testing plan to benefit those in need. But what can we do to solve this issue? First, schools need to offer SAT prep classes. While some schools do have some kind of SAT prep class, they are not mandatory or don't fit within student schedules. Instead of taking an SAT prep class, many students opt to take an AP class instead, or an elective that benefits their interests, like theater or band. If schools were to make SAT prep classes mandatory or provide some kind of incentive for taking them, such as quality points, students would be more likely to fit them into their schedule, which would reduce the demand for private tutoring and providing lower income students access to quality SAT prep. Colleges should also place more value on students' GPAs and class rank, as opposed to SAT scores. A study from Georgetown University, led by Anthony Carnival, states that 60% of incoming freshmen at selective universities are from top quartile family SES, but That would increase to 63% if students were admitted based on standardized test scores alone. The study also states that no one with an SAT or SAT equivalent score below 1250 would have been admitted to the 200 most selective colleges and universities if admissions were based on SAT scores alone. Since we already know that it is much easier to achieve a higher test score by spending more on prep and testing, this only decreases the chances of less affluent students attending these top accredited universities. Obviously, this requires an immense amount of change to take place. But what can you do about it? Imagine yourself in a world where your SAT score didn't determine whether or not you attend your dream college. Luckily, many schools have already started rolling back the value placed on SAT scores. Schools such as A&M, Texas, University of Texas, and Texas Tech will accept you regardless of your SAT score if you finish within a top percentage of your graduating class. If you didn't finish in this top percentage, don't worry. Other colleges such as University of Chicago or Wake Forest University don't require test scores on their applications. Consider going to one of these schools instead of a school that requires an SAT score if you decide to continue your education past Lone Star. Plus, you won't have to stress about taking an SAT. As you can see, the standardized admissions tests are not just. They help divide our society based on circumstances that were assigned at birth, circumstances students have absolutely no control over. These tests are holding our society and some of its members back from really shining, and that is not something that we can afford to have happen anymore. Thank you.